I'm Mary Matz, creator of TwistedYarns.com. Today I'm going to demonstrate how to make a facing with vertical buttonholes. Today we're going to do a vertical buttonhole band. And it's kind of a nice little band. It's very easy to do, and it has a nice feel to it. Even on, this is a bulky weight yarn, and I did this on my brother's bulky. But it's very flat when it's finished, and I think you'll enjoy it. The first thing we have to do is calculate how many stitches we need to get across this side. And I've already calculated it, and we need 28. So the first thing we're going to do is hang this edge on our machine. Now, how you're going to hang it is, if you look at the edge stitch, we're not going to pick up the whole edge stitch. We are actually going to only pick up half of an edge stitch, which is the one that's closest to the machine. So with that, we're going to pick up a couple on the edge, just enough so that we can stretch this down here and pick up a couple on this edge. The reason we're hanging the edges first is so that we can distribute the stitches evenly across the edge. If we started at one end and went to the other, all of a sudden this is going to bunch up and it's going to start walking. Once we've done that, we then return to the center and we hang the center stitches just to hold it in place. Now we've divided it in halves. Now we go to the center of the halves and pick up a few stitches. Then we go to the center of the half, the quarter. We pick up a few stitches, and then we can fill the rest of the stitches in. Now we have all up that we need one right here. Make sure we don't split it. Okay, stitch right there. Then we're going to go to this half of this half and pick up those stitches also, making sure that you only pick up half the edge stitch that's closest to the machine. Now that we have all of the needles full, we are then going to hunt for loners. We want to make sure, if you pull down, we want to make sure that we have picked up every single row. This one wasn't picked up, but it's going to lean one way or the other, so I'm going to put it near one of the adjacent stitches. We've gotten these. Here's one that's missing. And here's one here. Yep, that one's picked up. Let's look at this one. And we're going to go across this entire row hunting for these. It's very important that we pick all these rows up, every row. Some of them are knots and some of them are loops, but we've got to get them all picked up. And you can put them on either of the needles, but which way is it leaning toward? I'm just double checking because it's really critical. If you pull down and look, it's really critical that we get this part done correctly. Okay. Now we're going to move all of our needles into hold position. Only we're not going to hold them, but we're moving them all the way out so that we help the carriage along as it edges across. I'm going to pull up one needle beyond each edge. And that's because when you do the edge stitches on the band will curl in. And I want to have a little extra space so that when they curl in, I can seam them together and they'll look very neatly. So we're going to add one extra stitch on both ends. And so here we go. All right. Okay, that's 1, 2, make sure these end ones knit off, 3, 4, and that's where we're going to form our button band. What's nice about this particular method of doing a button band is that you don't have to calculate where your buttonholes are going to go until you get to this point. And you don't really calculate. What you're going to do is you're just going to put some needles up. We already know that we need 3 needles up. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 from the edge. 1, 2, 3. That makes 1 buttonhole. Then on this edge, 4, I'm going to go 3 up. Then I want to find the center. So I can space these out. Now this looks about right, but let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'd like to have 7 in between. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one here, and then put it back. So I have 7 stitches in between, and I'm going to take 1 more here. So let's see. 2, 4, 6, 7. 2, 4, 6, 7. 4 at the bottom, 3 on this end. I think that's pretty evenly distributed. If we were covering the entire bed, we could keep arranging until we have it just right, but you can do it right here, right now. Okay, let's move on. So, what we are going to do at this point is we are going to knit off with ravel cord these buttonholes. Now, what I like to do is I like to put a little teeny holder on it. It doesn't have a lot of weight, but it does have a little bit, it puts a little bit of tension on it so that they'll knit off on the next row. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Do the same here. 1, 2, 3. Now, if you don't happen to have another one of those little hangers, I'm just going to put a clothespin on it. It's just going to give just enough weight so that I don't have to worry so much when I go across on the next row. So now I'm going to knit 1 row, and I'm going to inspect. Did all of my stitches knit off? Yes, they did. So I'm going to knit 3 more. 2, 3, to get to 4. Okay, now I'm at the turning edge. Now you can flip this with a garter bar and it would make a very nice edge, or if you're not going to do that, you can tighten your tension 1 full digit lower. Okay, and so we're ready to knit 4 more rows, which is the first part of the facing, the inside facing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now we're ready to work on our buttonholes. So I'm going to take our little weights off. Okay, now I'm going to do the center one first and then I'll do the other 2. But I want you to see how this is done. If you notice, this top part of the ravel cord goes into a half stitch here, 1 stitch there, 1 stitch there, and a half stitch on the end. So I'm going to take the first half stitch that it's going in, I'm going to track it up to the needle that it belongs to, and I'm going to put it on that needle. In the meantime, I'm going to go 1 more stitch to the outside and hang that as a spare stitch. Okay, returning to this first stitch, we're going to knit it off. We're just going to pull the ravel cord stitch through the stitch that was in its place. Okay, it's knit off. Now we're going to transfer this one stitch to the left. Now we have 2 stitches on this needle. We're going to go to the next stitch of the buttonhole and put that on that needle. Now we have 3 stitches on that needle. We are going to put the first 2 loops, this loop and this loop, behind the latch. And we are going to knit off the stitch we just brought up by the ravel cord. Now we're going to transfer this stitch, one needle to the left, and then we're going to go and pick up yet another stitch, the next stitch in the row from the ravel cord stitch. We're going to push those 2 loops behind the latch and knit off that stitch. Then we're going to transfer it, one needle to the left and put it on the needle. Then we're going to return to the ravel cord row and pick up the last stitch that has ravel cord associated to it and put it on the needle. This one we will not knit off. Then we're going to go one more stitch over, track it up, and that should belong to this stitch. That's a good double check to make sure we got our stitches aligned properly. And that's just the outside, an extra stitch on the outside. Now, we're going to return to the ravel cord row, and we have 3 stitches on the lower edge. These stitches we are just going to lift onto the empty needles that were vacated when we transferred the stitches off of them. So that is the cast on part. So I'm going to pull these out so nothing falls off, because we're going to repeat that process for this side and this side. Now we finished each of our buttonholes and have the needles pull forward so that help the carriage go across. And we're going to move right across. And that's the first of 4 more rows to finish the facing. Now at this point you can pull out the ravel cord. It actually makes it a little easier to take it out at this point. So we've just taken out and our buttonholes are in there now. Okay, we have 3 more rows to move across. And that completes our facing. Now what we want to do is take our outer loop that we did not do on that first row. Remember when we lifted the edge stitch, we only lifted the inner loop closest to the machine. Now we're going to lift the outer loop and lift it up onto the needles. I'm going to do the ends first, just like before. And then the middle. Let's do 2 stitches in the middle. No, that's not right. And then we're going to move over. This is a lot easier than when we first picked up because we don't have to worry about picking every single stitch up on the edge. We just have to fill the needles. So whatever's below the needles, we will fill. So hold on. We'll get this done in just a second. Starting at this end, what I'm going to do on the first couple of stitches is I'm going to put my needle, my double-eyed needle, through the 2 loops on the hook. And I'm just going to pull it up. And I'm going to leave an end hanging. Okay? I'm going to do that twice. I'm going to do it to the second stitch also. I'm not going to actually take it off. And the reason is I want it to be stretched out over the bed while I do the rest of it. Once I get 2 of these done, then I can move on and just start sewing it off with the double-eyed needle. Pull down, release pressure. Make sure that you got your thumb on that yarn. It's a lot easier doing it this way than untangling it from your gate pegs. Now occasionally you'll want to tighten this up, and you can do that by just pulling it. Now I don't want to pull it too hard because now it's gone down to 1 strand, and because this end is not fastened down to anything, it'll just pull it right through. But I just want to firm it up. Okay, continuing on, we're going to go all the way across. I'll see you when we get to the end. Okay, we're down to the second to the last stitch. This is our last opportunity to tighten up. So we're going to give it one last nice pull. We're going to the last stitch, and we're going to take the last stitch off onto the needle. We are not going to tie it off yet. We're going to take our yarn end, and we're going to wrap it counterclockwise around the needle, pinch it down, and then push the needle through. And as you're pulling it up, let's get this little end out, it's going to form a knot. Very nice little. Now, if you can see, what you want to have at this point is a rod. And you're going to slip it through. I'm just using my crochet hook for this purpose. But you're going to slip it through. You're going to secure the buttonhole and hold on to it, because otherwise you'll be opening it up and pulling it out of place. But you want to slip your rod through here and do that across the side. Okay, to set those stitches. Now, let's see what we have. Now remember, I added an extra stitch to each end. And as you can see, the edge stitches tend to roll in. So I can tuck them any way I want to seam this bottom of the facing once it's settled in, so that it is perfectly even with the edge of the garment. And if you recall, when I said you have to make sure that you picked up every single one of those loops along the edge of the garment, that's so that you have this beautiful, even edging. And that is the vertical buttonhole band. It's completely finished. There's no more work to do on it. Thank you.